rocking and rolling. Got the background music on.
Making it happen, man.
Yeah.
We got it all.
Okay. Hey, I got a quick question. So tell me real fast about the golf tournament thing.
Our Revocation Radio, or TBTA, Take Back the Airwaves Ministries Golf Tournament, coming up April the 14th at Bent Brook Golf Course. Going to be an 8 a.m. tee time. So we want everybody to get out there and not have to get too hot, crazy, sweaty. Plus, it's a better time of year. We've had it during the summer. The last couple of years, just for time, we weren't able to get a spot in April. So we had this chance to get it in April this year. And so it's all going down in McCalla. Breakfast provided, lunch is provided. We'll have somebody speaking, and just a great day. We only allow 10 teams.
Only 10.
Yeah, only 10. So 40 guys are playing. You've got 3 or 4 hours. Everybody's spaced out. It's almost a hole in between each team when it's set up like that. You got 18 holes. You got 10
so you
teams.
don't have to rush.
Yeah, no rush, man. There's no reason to rush whatsoever. We just want everybody to have a good time.
All right, so the guy that, fundraising guy.
Yeah, Clifton.
Clifton said that you could buy back your mulligans.
Yeah, you can buy mulligans. I think it's 4 mulligans. Wait, I'm trying to remember what all.
So if you're not a good player,
right.
Because I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm a great putter, which is now out of style. People don't even do that anymore.
Whenever they go on vacation, they do.
I don't.
But we're not on a vacation. We're not in a vacation kind of area.
Yeah, we used to do it all the time.
Right.
But okay, so if you're not a good golfer, you could buy back your mulligan. Mulligan for non-golfers is when you make a bad shot, and then you redo.
Yeah, you take a mulligan, which means you get to redo the shot. That shot never existed.
You're going to charge people for
Correct.
Okay, so whatever the deal is, you could, I don't know, like it might be $100 or it might be $250 or whatever, but you could buy back your mulligan. So in theory, the worst golfer could buy his win.
We put a cap on it. You can buy so many mulligans.
Okay.
Because we want it to be somewhat fair.
Realistic.
Yeah. But it's a scramble, so it's best ball. So out of the 4 guys.
So 4 guys take a whack at it.
Right. Best ball, you play the best
so
ball.
all you need is one good player on your team.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then a few guys to get lucky every now and then.
So I could bring a pro in and then just, I'm going to ride on him.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a shot. He's always got the ball.
Right, and we're just playing for fun to see if we can match him.
No, but we're
a challenge.
We're playing to support a ministry.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's in April. I'll put a link down in the show notes. It's in April.
Yeah, Tuesday, April the 14th.
Okay, what are you gonna do if it snows?
Lord, please help us.
I mean, I know you laugh, but I remember in high school one of the first baseball games got snowed out.
Yeah, but we started playing high school baseball towards the end of February, and we were usually done by the
middle
week
of April.
Yeah, second week of April.
I have
Unless
no
you're going
idea.
to the playoffs.
I was just joshing with you. I don't know. I was just thinking. I don't think it'll snow. I was just thinking.
I have played a high school baseball game in the snow. I have.
Yeah,
I was an outfielder. Wasn't great.
We got snowed out. I was the guy that did the announcements, like, hey, now batting, all that.
I can see that.
I didn't have to do it. Like, it was just, you're done today.
Yeah.
No go.
Go home.
Yeah, well, this was back in the day where, when there's a tornado, you still went to school.
Everybody just went to the bottom floor and put a book over your head.
Yeah, you go into the
hallway.
And, hey, eat your pizza, your rectangular pizza, and keep your mouth shut. If it was snowing, hey, you might have school. You literally had to get up the next day if you thought it. So one night, if you thought it might snow tomorrow, you had to get up that day, and then you'd see it on the news. Like, they'd be scrolling across.
Yeah, you had to check the news.
Yeah, you had to check it, and it would have it scroll. Oh, school's out. But you're still up. Man, it's changed. The game has changed.
Why wouldn't they put the lunch trays? Why wouldn't they let us put the lunch trays over our heads
Eat
instead
your pizza
of the books?
And then put the lunch tray.
Yeah, because the lunch tray, those things are indestructible, dude.
I feel like they're probably still around.
More than likely.
You could
lunch trays and cockroaches and Twinkies. That's what's going to be left after the apocalypse.
Yeah.
That's it. All those things will remain.
And the sound divider proof that you brought from the old studio to the new studio that's sitting here against the wall. That this is so revealing. It looked so clean when it was on the wall.
Yeah.
And then you pull it over here and you're like, man, this stuff looks disgusting.
Yeah, it can.
I mean, no disrespect to you.
Right.
It's like when you move houses. And you go, man, our house looks so clean.
Well, and
no.
All the little black foam was glued to those.
Yeah,
that's what that is. Yeah, it was covering it up. So.
Okay. What's the time clip right here?
We are at 4:54.
Better start. So 5 minutes in, this is episode number 35 on the Jenkins site, if you're in the GY6 thread. Number 4. I need to get those tracking together somehow. Okay, so here we are. The name of this one, No Faith Required. No faith required. Let me tell you why we're going to set it up, because I'm talking about healing, talking about wholeness. A lot of that has to do with emotional and spiritual stuff, but there is the physical element in there as well. And in the context of that, I want to talk about no faith required, because so often people, especially church people, and I'm not being negative about church people. Like growing up, I church people grew up in the church.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the church probably. I know I was in church the week before I was born, because my mom was singing a Christmas cantata and felt me flip, in her belly while she's singing. And that was confirmed at the doctor's office when I was born. And I know I was probably in church the week, like right after that. So not making fun of church people. However, church people, we tend to think some things that might not be totally accurate. It's very easy to get kind of into a party line or denominational line or a church thread line, and you just go, oh, that's it, because we don't a lot of times go drive back to the original text, i.e. Old Testament, New Testament, and see what it actually says. So a lot of church people think that the strongest force in the universe is faith, and if you don't have enough faith, then somehow it restrains God from breaking through in your finances. It restrains God from breaking through in your family, in your relationship at work, in your health. And sometimes the miracle doesn't come because you might have even heard this before. I mean, you just go get on a late night televangelist show on, I'm not making fun of Daystar or TBN, but any of those, you'll probably hear somebody get rebuked because they didn't have enough faith, and that's why, boom, the miracle, the breakthrough, whatever they were contending for, praying for, it didn't happen. You ever heard that? All right, 3 points here, because we're just trying a couple new setups. Point number 1 is, faith is not a work that's mentioned in the Bible. It's not a hurdle that you got to jump through. There is not a scorecard of, like, if you get enough faith, then all of a sudden, like, you've got the tipping point. Now God's got to move. Here's what the Bible does say. It says, by grace you're saved. So salvation is a gift of faith, clearly not of works, so nobody can boast. And that's true about how you come into the Christian life. It's also how you continue the Christian life. Paul even says in Galatians, hey, are you foolish? He actually says that word. He goes, you fool? That's the word. He says, having started this by the Spirit, are you now going to continue in the flesh? So the answer would be no. You start the Christian life in the empowerment of the Spirit. You continue it not in your capacity. You continue it in the empowerment also of the Spirit. So your lack of faith is not handcuffing God in any way whatsoever. He's more powerful than your unbelief. All right, that's point number 1. Point number 2, it's going to take us a little bit longer to cover this one. Point number 2 is this. When you go into the New Testament, it's even in the Old Testament as well, there is no box, there is no formula that shows us how much faith that you've got to have in order for there to be a move of God. Okay, so I already told you, point number 1, it's not a work, something you earn. It's not a scorecard. It's not a grade. Just like, there's no thermometer on the wall. Like, you get enough in this equation, or you get, like, there's no, like, bar chart. Like, you can see it filling up. Oh, you're getting there. Let's dig in. Let's get harder faith. You got to have more. Let's get more, church. Come on. Like, you'll hear people preach that. That's not how it works. Number 2, like, even if it was, which it's not, like, there's no formula. So, like, you don't even need that bar chart or whatever, or that metric, because there's not even a formula to fit the metric into to where it's going to tip the point of a certain degree of faith causes a certain thing to happen. Let me illustrate it. Let me give you, this is going to have 7 examples in the New Testament, 7 different degrees of faith that we see. So let me knock and this is in no order of importance whatsoever. I think probably in retrospect, if you were writing it in a book, you could probably order these like maybe on a varying degrees of faith, but let's just kind of start off here. No faith. Number 1 of 7, no faith. So there's a story in John chapter 5 where Jesus heals a man. He was at the pool of Bethsaida. Some translations call it the pool of Bethesda. We don't know because it was a different language, so we kind of transliterate the best we can when you take foreign name and you put it into like your native tongue. There's a guy sitting at the pool. He's been lame. He's been there for 38 years. And the legend of the pool was whenever an angel stirred the waters, whoever jumped in first would be physically healed. And apparently that must have happened because there were people that were gathered there at the pool, and they continued sitting there. And you would think that people wouldn't be sitting there, especially for 38 years, like this guy seems to have been doing, if nobody was ever healed.
That's right.
So, and when Jesus comes up to him and Jesus asks him if he wants to be made well, the guy starts making excuses. He says, well, I do, but like every time that I'm getting ready to get in, he's lame. Somebody else jumps in before him. If he's lame, he can't jump. He's just whatever. Now, get the picture. He wants to be made well. There's Jesus standing right in front of him, and he starts talking about, well, the pool and the angel stirring the water and other people. No faith. Jesus is right there. Now, for all the stories of, hey, Jesus, can you heal this? Will you do this? What about, or just straight out, hey, heal my son, heal my servant, heal my daughter. Straight up, the guy's making excuses. What do you see? An example of no faith. What does Jesus do? He says, take up your mat, get yourself up on out of here, boy. Probably doesn't say it like that.
Not quite.
Yeah, but example number 1, no faith. There you go. Number 2. You see examples of partial faith. So at the Mount of Transfiguration, this is in Mark chapter 9, the disciples are at the bottom of the hill, 9 of them. 3 are at the top of the hill with Jesus when he is transfigured. Peter, James, and John are with him when Elijah and Moses appear to him. And then this voice comes from heaven and says, this is my son, hear him. So it's this moment where he's caught up. It's a great story, by the way. Just as a side note, so let's take a rabbit trail. Do you remember Moses? Like what he wanted to do? What he actually asked God. He wanted to see God face to face. And God said, you can't see me face to face, because if you see me face to face, you would die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is at Mount Sinai. And he also wanted to go into the promised land, but God would not let him go into the promised land because he struck the rock in anger when God said, hey, strike the rock and, make water come. And he just kept banging it and banging it and banging it. And so he got to see it from a distance, but he didn't get to go in. So he was buried. God buried him. And then Joshua led the children of Israel into the promised land. Moses actually died one of those final moments in the wilderness before they crossed over. So the Mount of Transfiguration in Mark chapter 9, it's incredibly cool because Moses actually gets, post-death, 2 of the things he requested. One of them was to see God face to face. So Jesus is God. Jesus is up there on the Mount of Transfiguration with Moses, and he gets to do it, of all places, inside of the what land?
Promised land.
Promised land. Yep. Yeah, right there. So Jesus comes down from the hill, and at the bottom of the hill, the disciples have been trying to cast out this demon, and they can't. And the man whose son has the demon comes up to Jesus and says, your disciples tried to cast out the demon. They could not. Can you cast out the demon? Always, this demon torments my son and throws him into the fire to try to destroy him, or he throws him into water to try to get him to drown. He's trying to kill my son, the demon is. And Jesus says, if you believe. And the Father says, Mark chapter 9, verse 24, I believe, help my unbelief. So what's he saying right there? There's some belief, but it's not total. You see? Example number 2, partial faith. Another example of that might be there's an instance when a leper approaches Jesus in Matthew chapter 8, verse 2, and he says, Lord, if you are willing, you could heal me. It's almost as if, hey, I'm not sure if you'll do this, but I think you could. It's an example of number 2 of 7, partial faith. Let me give you, here's the one we always think it has to be. Number 3 of 7 is total faith. So we usually think that it's got to be like Matthew chapter 9, verse 18, when Jairus comes up to Jesus. Now, Jairus is a ruler of the synagogue, and he says, hey, my daughter's at the point of death. If you just come and lay hands on her, she'll be made well. Now, this is the instance where Jesus is talking, and then all of a sudden a woman with the flow of blood comes up to him and reaches out and touches him because she has total faith. And she says, if only I could reach out and touch the hem of his garment, I'd be made well. Well, that happens because of her total faith. Jesus turns around and speaks to her. While he's speaking to her, there's a delay of getting to Jairus' daughter, and Jairus' daughter dies, and then Jesus goes in and raises her from the dead. So we see 2 examples of total faith right there. Another example of total faith, Mark chapter 7, verse 24, the Syrophoenician woman who has a daughter that she wants to be healed of a demon, she comes to Jesus and just straight up says, hey, heal my daughter. You can. And Jesus actually pushes back a little bit and said, hey, I was sent to the lost sheep of Israel, and she is not. She's Syrophoenician. She's of a mixed race from a different area, and she says, hey, even the other people somehow, I just need a little scrap or crumb of a miracle, is what she says. Like this would be a small thing for you, and again, so much faith that healing her daughter is small. It's like Matthew chapter 9, verse 29, there's 2 blind men that approach Jesus, and the scripture says very clearly, Matthew writes, they were healed, quote, according to their faith. So the only time that we see somebody gauged, measured, and healed based on their faith is just when the scripture goes, oh, this person had total faith, and they were healed according to that faith. But it never restrained Jesus from healing people with a mixed ratio of faith and unfaith or belief and unbelief. It never restrained him from healing someone that had no faith at all. And it never restrained him from, now catch this, because this is going to fly in the face of a lot of what you taught about your relationship with God just being between you and God only, and you being the only determining factor of what occurred there. So number 4 of 7. And I've got these listed down in the show notes, by the way, so you can follow track, go look up the verses. Number 4, sometimes Jesus actually healed people, as we just kind of saw with the Syrophoenician example and Jairus' daughter example. He healed people based on other people's faith. Now, I tossed the other 2 in the other category of total faith because those were kids. But there is, and so when you go total faith, well, of course, it was like the parents contending for the kids, mom and dad for the children. But there's this example in Mark chapter 2 where Jesus is teaching in a house, and the crowd is there. It's so tightly packed that there's some friends who want to take one of their friends who is a paralytic to Jesus, but they can't get to him. It's just too crowded. One guy you could probably maneuver through, but you got 4 guys presumably carrying a guy on a sheet or kind of lifting him or on a cot. How are we going to get this guy in there? We just can't. And so they go up on the roof and they tear a hole through the ceiling. And then they lower him with ropes on the cot right there to the feet of Jesus. And you imagine, like, this wouldn't be instant. This isn't like just drilling a hole in the ceiling and then dropping a line. I mean, this is like, could you imagine everybody in the commotion of like, what in the world's going on? Hey, stop that. And people just looking and Talk about an awkward pause in a sermon.
But it's multiple levels of faith. They had the faith that the roof was going to hold up. They had the faith that they weren't going to drop their friend. And then they had the faith that Jesus would heal him once he was in there.
And think about the ride that this guy's on. Hey, you're going to take us on the roof? What? Wait, no, guys. Hey, wait. Oh, yeah. Because when they drop him, here's what Scripture says. When he saw their faith, like you just said, not the friend, not the paralytic, guy. Yeah. It was when he saw their faith. He healed that man. And here's where it even gets more interesting. I mean, talk about like busting up altar call theology, and I'm not making an argument on this
one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm just saying here's what happened in that story. The first thing Jesus did was he said, "Son, your sins are forgiven you." Now I thought, and again, I'm not making an argument on this. I'm just saying here's what happened. I thought, man, you got to walk that aisle and make your own profession of faith. Okay, I'm not. Again, this isn't a teaching on that. I am saying Jesus forgave his sins based on their faith. That kind of smacks in a lot of stuff. And then when the Pharisees got upset and said, "Who can forgive sins but God alone?" That's when Jesus said, "Hey, so that you'll know that I've got the power to forgive sins, I'm going to say to you, take up your mat, rise and walk." Because presumably forgiving sins is easier than backing up a physical miracle that needs substantial, see it with your own eyes, and watch it play out proof. That's an incredible story, and it's a healing, like a double heal, like it's a double whammy. This guy got forgiveness and physical healing, not based on his faith, based on, we don't know how much he had or didn't, but it was clearly other people's faith. And it's not an isolated story in the Bible. There is another one in Luke chapter 7, verse 1. This Roman centurion comes up to Jesus, and he wants Jesus to heal his servant. And Jesus says, "Oh, hey, look, I'll come with you." And he says, no, you don't have to do that. Look, I see you. I'm a man under authority. I say the word, and this thing happens. My soldiers come and go based on what I say. You just give the word from here, and it'll happen. So it's not only an example of total faith. So that was example number 3 of 7, or type of faith 3 of 7 that we just talked about. This is somebody else's faith. Centurion is getting his servant healed. Servant isn't even there. But it's the centurion's faith that Jesus commends and then takes action on. Okay, let's recap what we've seen so far. Number 1 was sometimes Jesus heals people based on, man, I got to find my list, no faith. Number 2, you hear the paper shuffling right there. Number 2, partial faith. Number 3, total faith. Number 4, other people's faith. Number 5, sometimes what you're picking up on these is it's just silent, and we don't know about the faith. So let me give you, looking back on this, the silence. How much faith did the centurion servant have? We don't know. How much faith did the paralytic that was dropped through the roof have? We don't know. How much faith did the Syrophoenician woman's daughter have? We don't know. How much did Jairus' daughter have? We don't know. What about the instance in John chapter 9 where Peter and John are walking through? The disciples are all with them, and Peter looks over at Jesus and says, "Hey, this man right here that's blind, that has been blind from the time he was born, who sinned to cause him to be born blind? Was it him, or was it his parents?" Now, in that culture, they think a lot of what sometimes we think in church world today, that when something bad happens or you're undergoing a physical trial or suffering, that it is because of your sin. And so this one has kind of confused the disciples, because if the man was born blind, it couldn't necessarily be punishment on the man because he was born that way. It wasn't like he was 10, he was 13. 13 is when you became an adult in that age. In that culture, you know, at the bar mitzvah and everything, it wasn't like he turned 13, went and robbed a bank, and now he's struck with blindness. Or it wasn't like he got up and, like Samuel, God calls him and he says, "Here, my Lord." It wasn't like he heard the voice of God and then cursed God, and so now he's struck with blindness. So the disciples are perplexed. So if the man didn't sin because he was born that way, then did his parents do it, and the sin is passed on to the parents? A lot of times in the Old Testament, they thought, hey, the kids reap what the parents did. And Jesus says, no, none of that. This was just an opportunity now where we'll demonstrate the presence and power of God. Now, again, this is in John chapter 9. In this story, as in the others, what happens, we don't know how much faith is there. It's a completely silent part of the equation. So again, number one, Jesus heals no faith. Number two, Jesus heals when there's partial faith. Number three, Jesus heals when there's total faith. Number four, Jesus heals with other people's faith. Number five, like sometimes it's just silent. We don't know, and we can't insert and make a formula when we don't know. Let me give you number six. And you got to be really careful on this one, because we know that healing is not something we earned. It's not like a scorecard based on you did something and you earned it, now you got it. Salvation doesn't work that way. You start by the Spirit, you continue in the Spirit. There is this instance in Luke chapter 17, verse 14 and following, where there are these lepers that come to Jesus and they want to be made well. And he says to them, he says, okay, now it looks like an example of total faith right there. So let's insert that from number 2 up above. He says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go show yourself to the high priest and offer the sacrifice which is commanded. Now that comes straight out of the book of Leviticus. What would occur is, in that culture, if you were a leper, you would be excluded from the community. You would have to shout, I'm unclean, when people came near so that they wouldn't touch you. You would have to live what the Bible calls, quote, outside the camp, so outside the city. If others touched anything that had touched you, they would now be unclean. The only way to be welcomed back into the faith community and to be stamped as clean was to go be examined by the priest. Now, that's in the book of Leviticus. You can see it in Leviticus 13, Leviticus 14. And so Jesus is sending them back to the priest, not as a earn your salvation, earn your healing type of thing. He's sending them to the one place that can certify that healing has occurred and that they can be welcomed back into the faith community. So in a real sense, he's doing them a favor by sending them on this step. Otherwise, everyone is always going to question, are they clean? Can we be around them? Here's what's interesting. Luke, who was a physician and writes extensively about the power of the Holy Spirit all throughout the book of Acts, Luke says, quote, they were healed as they went. So in this instance, it's almost like the story of Naaman the leper in the Old Testament, where he goes to Elijah and he says he wants to be healed of leprosy. And Elijah says, hey, go dip yourself in the Jordan River 7 times. And he's not going to do it. And then finally, the servant says, hey, That's a very small action. Like, why would you not? Like, just try it. Like, if it was something grandiose, like, hey, go climb this mountain or go, do 78 Hail Marys. They didn't have those back in the day, but if they had like a, whatever, you would do it. So, I mean, like, this is a little thing. Go try it. Baptize yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. He does it, and the scripture says, as he did it, he was healed. So I don't know. We can't make it a formula, but sometimes without earning it, there is this, hey, you walk it out. What might that look like for you? It might look like you step into, on a personal side, I saw this. I had a lot of physical ailments going on about a decade ago, and as I started exercising, they disappeared. You've heard us talk about, in fact, I'll talk about iomai and therapeuo, 2 kinds of healing, in the next episode. Sometimes that therapeuo type of healing, where you walk it out, you go see the counselor, you go see the therapist, you get in the small group, you do the work. That's the phrase we use. Not to work for it, but you do the work to walk it out. Like, sometimes the healing comes as you walk it out. You see, you don't make a formula, but as they went, it occurred. Let me give you number 7. 7 is, like, sometimes it's just a sovereign intervention of Jesus just decides to do something. And again, the scripture is silent on how much faith was present or not present. There's an example where he's in the temple and he looks over and he sees a woman. He calls her, quote, a daughter of Abraham, who's hunched over at the back. She can't stand up straight. And he just reaches out on the Sabbath and he heals her. And she's made well. There's no remark about faith in that at all. It's another example of where it's silent. But he just decides, I'm going to unbind this person who has been bound for decades. This is what happened with the man who was born blind that we just referenced moments ago. Is there's just these instances where even though everything's not going to be completely right on this side of heaven, we still contend for total healing. We still contend for total health. Sometimes we do see these snapshots of where the kingdom just breaks in full force. It's just this direct intervention that we know we didn't earn. We know we didn't create a formula or a box or a ritual or a routine that caused it to automatically happen. But we celebrate it and we enjoy it and we pass the story on to others to encourage, equip, and empower them in their faith journey as well. You see? So point number 1 on this entire talk right here, as we kind of set up to point number 3, is faith is not a work. It's not a work that forces the hand of God or becomes a metric that you've got to obtain somehow, like a pole vault. Like you got to get some kind of pole of faith that's going to vault you over a bar that is seemingly astronomically high. And that led us to point number 2, where you look in the New Testament, there's at least 7 different categories of miracles that occurred. Everything from no faith to partial faith to total faith to other people's faith to completely silent about faith being present at all to sometimes being backed by action to maybe it's just a sovereign intervention. And that leads me to the final big point here, number 3. In the New Testament, honor seems to be a bigger issue to me than faith. Honor is, if we were going to say it just transparently, honor is more important. Now, a lot of people that talk about the faith thing, they point to kind of the hitchpin verse of all of this. It's in the book of Mark. It's in Mark chapter 6 and in Luke chapter 4. Both of those conflate and join together stories of Jesus' first sermon in his hometown of Nazareth. And if you read through Mark's version, Mark says something like this. he could do no mighty work there because of their unbelief. And so we latch onto that and say, well, there it is right there. Like, they didn't have any faith, and so Jesus couldn't do any mighty works. He healed a few people of very small things, but he couldn't do a mighty work there because Nazareth didn't have any faith. Here's what the text actually says. Mark 6:4, Jesus, so it's red letter, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. Now, that's a phrase that we'll repeat over and over in the New Testament. In fact, we'll see it in Luke chapter 13 when Jesus is there and he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. He's always weeping, how I long to gather all of you under my protection like a mother hen gathers her chicks, but you would not. And it seems to infer right there was no honor. Like, they would not say, and then he continues, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. They would not receive him as if God had sent him. They would not honor him as a messenger of God. And so consequently, they kind of reaped a whirlwind there. Not because of a lack of faith, but because of a lack of respect, a lack of honor. So right here in Mark 6:4, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. And then it says, and he could do no mighty work there. So you catch it? A prophet is not without honor. Now he could do no mighty work there. Honor. And then it continues, Mark 6:6, and he marveled because of their unbelief. It's almost like Mark comes in with this addition and says, okay, the driving issue here was honor. It was respect. Oh, by the way, P.S., in addition to this, like, these people didn't have any faith either. Which, by the way, is astounding because they're all throughout the New Testament, people's faith, it wasn't irrelevant. It just wasn't the driving force behind what they could receive or not receive. Do you see? It was respect. And you say, well, what about that time in Mark chapter 9 where he rebuked the disciples for their unbelief? Well, in that issue, they were the ones who were supposed to be ministering healing. He'd already empowered them to do it. He'd already sent them out. So this was not rebuking somebody who needed to receive the miracle. This would be, in his instance, this would be like Jesus rebuking me for not praying and healing to you. This would be like him rebuking the evangelist or the guy on TV for not being able to relay the miracle, not the person who didn't receive. Do you see? So he didn't rebuke the people needing ministry. He rebuked the ones who he had empowered to go dispense the ministry. And that is so different. So, my friend, as we sign off, no faith required. I got enough faith for you. So my prayer is, wherever you are, you're riding the bike. Got a friend up in Boston. He listens while he's riding the bike, or you're out on a boat, or you're doing the dishes, which Beth still has not showed me how to do the dishwasher. Man, that's back to episode number 1 or 2.
I know you hate that.
Yeah, I mean, here we are in 35.
She had her chance.
Yeah, that's in the rearview mirror. Or it'd be hard to listen while you're vacuuming the house, but you're working out, you're running, you're commuting. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing right now, my prayer is that you would actually, right now, tangibly feel the Lord's presence and sense His power. And know that He's for you, He's not against you. There's nothing you could do that would separate you from His love, from His fullness. Paul says in Acts 17, in Him we live and move and breathe and have our being. So may you sense His nearness even in you. Colossians says that Christ is in you. That's your hope of glory. And whatever you need right now, may you feel the breakthrough. Grace and peace.